Yo, welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. What a beautiful day to be alive and investing in markets. Tesla stock today is down 0.86%, but we have tons of breaking news to get into. And we're going to talk about why Tesla's down today, why the S&P is down 0.6% at the time of recording this video, why the Russell is down 0.34%, but is actually outperforming the S&P by about 2x. A lot of it has to do with the economic data, but as I've said before on this channel, I'm not surprised by this. Okay? You probably recall me saying this, but I was calling for a consolidation correction. There's not really a good word for it, okay? Not like a 10% correction like people think, but 2 to 3% downside, then followed by a lot of chop. We've gotten that almost 3% peak to trough decline in the last couple of days, then followed by a period of consolidation, like sideways trading action in that 2 to 3% range. Call it sideways chop. That is what is happening today. Again, mainly because of the economic data, but we're going to get into all of that here in just a moment. We're going to start with your Tesla stock breaking news. As always, ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check out that link down below in the description of this video to join the trading community. If you want to be a part of the best trading community in the entire world, what we're doing over there, let me give you a little bit of a heads up in case you join. We're going over there finding small cap AI stocks that Wall Street does not know about yet. Yes, this is my favorite strategy when investing, whether it's cannabis in 2018, 2017-ish, whether it's biopharmas and small caps in 2019 or COVID plays in, 2020 and 2021, right? Semiconductors most recently. Now it's really broadly AI, okay? There's more opportunities in this market because of just AI being so broad-based and inclusive. We're going out finding the stocks that Wall Street does not know about and really is not invested in yet. One stock in particular, I now have over $75,000 in this company, and I think we're going to see a huge move with that stock in the month of August after they report earnings. But hey, I'm not a financial advisor, not a financial planner. Do not be a jackass. If you push that buy or sell button, you are responsible for the consequence of what happens in your portfolio. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of work to get into in this video. Let's get started. First and foremost, as we talked about last night, but I think is important to highlight again, Tesla is slightly increasing Model Y production output at Giga Texas. This is likely in part to prepare for the rush of demand that they'll see in the US at the end of the quarter before the EV credit expires. Rivian has also filed a lawsuit in Ohio to be able to sell its electric vehicles directly to consumers in the state. SpaceX says they will use up to 12 Tesla Megapacks at their new Starship launch facility in Florida, according to a new filing. They say, quote, up to 12 Megapacks would be installed to support 24 megawatt, 48 megawatt hours of power generation. GM says they sold an all-time record high, 19,000 EVs in the US last month in July, up 115% year over year. They sold 8,500 Chevy Equinox EVs last month, the best month of sales for any non-Tesla EV ever, the company said. GM acknowledged that there's an EV buying spree now since America's federal EV tax credit will expire in September. Tesla has also introduced a new loyalty benefits section in the menu in their app. Tesla has now secured a massive new $2.7 billion Megapack order from Georgia Power. The large order includes a whopping 3,022 megawatt, 3 gigawatt of combined capacity spread across 10 BESS facilities at 8 sites throughout the state of Georgia. 4-hour duration Megapack battery energy storage units from Tesla will be used. Sawyer Merritt says, if my estimates are right, the combined capacity of these facilities will be enough to power over 2 million homes for 4 hours, okay? This is a massive order. You would think Wall Street would pick up on this, but they're not. Especially given the energy division of Tesla is the most profitable segment for Tesla besides AI, like, FSD, right? That's obviously more profitable, a lot more profitable than the energy business, but Tesla does not compartmentalize. You get what I'm trying to say. The FSD numbers on their earnings. Okay, so from what Wall Street can understand, energy is the most profitable division, and to get big orders like this, you would think would move the stock, but, well, it's not today. Tesla has officially filed the Form 4 for Elon Musk's new interim pay package of 96 million Tesla shares. The restricted stock award will vest on August 3rd, 2027. And one of the best parts about Tesla being a Texas-based company now is that if you want to bring forth a derivative action, like a lawsuit against the company, like what happened with Elon's 2018 comp package, you now need to own 3% of all outstanding shares, which would be $33 billion worth. So the threshold for these stupid lawsuits that are disruptive to investors is a lot higher being in Texas. Now, Tesla has started sending out invites to people even overseas to come try out their Bay Area ride-hailing service. Kathy Wood on X today says, here's some perspective. In the most penetrated US geographies, human-driven ride-hail accounts for only 3% of vehicle miles traveled. In an autonomous world, we believe Tesla will dominate personal transportation, transforming a low-margin EV play into a high-margin recurring revenue software as a service play. So even somewhere like San Francisco, for an example, probably the most heavily penetrated autonomous vehicle city in the world, only has 3% of miles traveled, by a ride-hailing service like Waymo, Uber, etc. In a world in which that shifts to 50+% of miles driven, which most likely will happen, especially in heavy urban areas. Well, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we crunched the numbers over this weekend. Just look up Grok just predicted Tesla stock, and we crunched the numbers. And if Tesla can scale the Robotaxi business how we believe over time, yeah, the profit generation is going to be massive. And that's what Kathy Wood is highlighting here. And that's where she gets really her $2,600 price target on Tesla. Mercedes just said they will release 15 new EVs over the next 2 years, calling it the biggest product launch program in the history of Mercedes-Benz. Tesla sold a record 7,357 cars in South Korea in July. The Model Y was the best-selling imported vehicle for the third month in a row. The Model 3 was number 2. 72% of all imported EVs registered in July were Teslas. Tesla has been granted a new U.S. patent for an active aerodynamic system that uses fans and deployable skirts to create downforce at any speed. It can seal the car's underside for maximum grip at low speeds and adjust for uneven terrain at higher speeds, improving acceleration, cornering, and braking. This type of technology could be used in the next generation Tesla Roadster. It says here, Tesla and Musk sued over Robotaxi safety risks. Shareholders filed a lawsuit accusing Elon Musk and Tesla of securities fraud for hiding safety risks of Tesla's self-driving tech, including the Robotaxi. The suit follows a late June test where Robotaxis were seen speeding, braking suddenly, and making dangerous maneuvers. Tesla shares fell 6.1% after the test. Investors claim Tesla exaggerated the tech's abilities, misleading the public and inflating its stock. The class action covers shareholders from April 2023 to June of 2025. Now here you can see today the Russell is down it's actually positive now, up 0.01%, kind of volatile, but the S&P is down 0.42%. Let me show you why that is today. It comes down to the ISM services PMIs. This has got to be what is causing the, underperformance of the S&P, a little bit of that relative outperformance of the Russell. ISM Services PMIs on the headline came in at 50.1. The expectation was 51.5, so this was weaker than expected. Okay, weaker than expected raises odds of rate cuts. Weaker than expected, though, is not necessarily great for markets, but a little bit weaker, some could see as positive for solidifying even more the rate cuts, but not enough to cause a recession or not enough to cause a material impact to earnings. Okay, so slight miss could be seen as a positive, at least for higher beta, risk on areas, especially even then again, the Russell has sold off more than the S&P in the last, couple of days. I mean, the Russell was never even at all-time highs to begin with. Like you were still down like 10% from all-time highs at the peak of this market in 2025. So like, there could be more upside potential, I believe, for areas like small caps into the end of this year, just kind of as a baseline, right? ISM Services business activity came in at 52.6. The expectation was 54.3. So a little bit weaker there on business activity. Employment came in at 46.4, weaker than the expected 48. But again, notice here, while you're missing on all these numbers, they're not massive misses. They're just barely missing. ISM Services new orders came in at 50.3. The expectation was 51.4. Again, a slight miss. Could be seen as a positive for small caps, more than the headline S&P. ISM Services prices came in at 69.9. The expectation was 67.7. So that was kind of a bit of the bad part of this data today. The prices component did go higher. Now RCM TIPP Economic Optimism Index came in at 50.9. The expectation was 49.2. So it came in a little bit better than expected, but nothing again to really write home about. Now we do have some big earnings today and after hours as well. AMD, Supermicro, Arista, Astrolabs, Opendoor, Snap, Lucid, Upstart, Rivian, and Clover. Wednesday pre-market, you have Uber, Shopify, Oscar, Novo Nordisk, Walt Disney, Six Flags, McDonald's. Wednesday and after hours, AppLovin, IONQ, Symbotic, Duolingo, Fortinet, Energy Transfer, Elf, DraftKings, Jack in the Box, and Joby Aviation. Thursday pre-market, D-Wave, Celsius, Eli Lilly, ConocoPhillips, HUD 8, Vistra Energy, and Sony. Thursday and after hours, The Trade Desk, Rocket Lab, SoundHound, NewScale, Pinterest, Atlassian, Take-Two Interactive, and Twilio. And then Friday pre-market, Fubo and Tempest AI, as well as others like TerraWolf and Wendy's. Also in the news today, Brazil's VP Alckmin says U.S. levies against Brazil are totally unjustifiable. LendingTree reports 5.1% of Americans are now delinquent on auto loans, with 2% at least 30 days late and nearly 1% over 90 days late. Honestly, 1% 90 days late doesn't sound terrible. The U.S. prepares to end $7 billion in solar panel grants, according to the New York Times. U.S. Transportation Department proposes rules to allow drone flights beyond visual line of sight without waivers, paving the way for commercial uses like deliveries, farming, and emergency medications. 7 Republicans asked U.S. Commerce Department to identify potential security vulnerabilities posed by Chinese open source AI model, DeepSeek. Mexico's President Sheinbaum says the date of when the security deal will be signed is still to be decided. But she does say a US-Mexico security deal is ready. New York Fed says total household debt rose 1% in Q2 to $18.39 trillion. Mortgage debt up $131 billion to $12.94 trillion. Credit card debt up $27 billion to $1.1 trillion, and auto loans up $13 billion to $1.66 trillion. Overall delinquency rates slightly higher at 4.4%. Student loan troubles surge to 10.2%, now 90 plus days delinquent. The end of the moratorium and credit reporting resumptions are driving student loan delinquencies. New York Fed warns student loans struggles are likely to continue. FHA mortgage delinquencies rise the fastest, over 4%, transitioning to 30 plus days past due. Trouble concentrated in southern states and Puerto Rico. Credit standards remain tight. Mortgage performance still strong by historical standards. The Fed notes housing may face headwinds if prices decline further, and some auto loan growth driven by pre-tariff vehicle purchases. Could be like the $7,500 tax credit that's soon to come to an end. Only 4% of all U.S. households make $200,000 or more per year. Trump says a tariff of 35% on the EU if they don't meet obligation. Trump says, quote, they paid $600 billion, and because of that, I reduced their tariff from 30% down to 15%. That's a gift. That's not a loan, he said in an interview with CNBC. The details are $600 billion to invest in anything I want. The purpose was they've been ripping us off for so many years that it's time that they pay up, and they have to pay up. Wells Fargo has said its 2025 U.S. GDP growth forecast has increased to 1.3% from 1%. What's interesting about today as well, probably should have talked about this earlier, but was the balance of trade that came in at negative $60.2 billion, exports that came in around expectations, and imports that came in lower than expected. So this means we had a smaller trade deficit than what was expected. When you sell more than you consume, that's positive for GDP typically, okay? Now there's a lot of different variables that go into that, but the estimate for GDP yesterday was 2.1%. Following today's data, it's up to 2.5% for very preliminary estimates for Q3. Trump says leaders of NATO do whatever I want. Trump says he would like to run again, but probably he won't. Trump says he might announce the Fed chair fairly soon, while confirming that Bessent declined the consideration for the role. Trump says that Bank of America discriminated against him, as well as JP Morgan. Trump says he has a very good relationship with China's President Xi. Trump says, I think we'll make a good deal with China. Trump says, I will meet with China's Xi before the end of the year if there is a trade deal. And he says that Xi called for the meeting. Trump says he will raise tariffs on India soon over buying Russian oil. And he says that he will raise these tariffs substantially over the next 24 hours. Trump says that he is not worried about oil prices. And he says that we'll be putting on initially small tariffs on pharma. And he says he will be announcing on semiconductors and chips in the next week or so. Trump says that he could use the Kugler vacancy to pick a future Fed chair. And Trump says that Bessent wants to stay where he is. Trump says that Kevin Warsh is very good. And now you have like betting markets over 40% in favor of Kevin Warsh being the next Fed chair. Trump says that Powell is too late to cut rates. And Trump reiterates the allegation that the labor statistics were rigged. Like, again, I just want to acknowledge this. Like, Donald Trump joined Squawk Box at 8 a.m. Eastern time this morning. Like, he went on a stock news channel. He loves the markets. Like, markets were down today. Trump, very quick to try to, correct that and get, stocks moving higher. Trump wants to see the stock market do as good as possible. I think it's kind of like a secret agenda of Trump that he wants to be the president that had the best performing stock market of all time. Because it's actually funny. Most of you guys probably don't know this, but Republican presidents tend to have not great markets, right? They tend to be conservative and spend less money and not go into theoretically as much debt over time, right? We're talking about the last, 200 plus years of this country's history. So recently it's been a little mixed, but Republicans historically have not been great for markets. Like Democrats tend to have better markets. Okay. Higher returns during Democratic presidencies. I think Trump personally probably wants, to go down in history as having the best stock market out of any president in the world. That's personally how I think Trump is viewing this. It's like a personal stat or personal victory. Here on the day today, the Fear and Greed Index is coming in at 55, which is on the high side of neutral, almost in greed, but not quite there yet. Again, keep in mind, we were in extreme greed about a month ago, really like 2 weeks or so ago. So yeah, you've reset quite a bit on a sentiment, metric, but in all reality, like you're still only down from all-time highs. About 1.7%. Imagine tomorrow the S&P goes up 1.7%. You're going to be in greed, but you're not going to be back in extreme greed. So you have reset some of that sentiment and that momentum, which is actually a big positive for the longevity of this market. The last thing you want is like markets to rip, RSI to go to like 90, and then boom, just crash, right? You want to see these consolidationary corrections from time to time. And that's exactly what it is. Like we have our range, in my view, between here, the all-time high, and between here, the low that you had on August 1st. You're going to, duck and weave, bob and bumble through this area. Don't be surprised, okay? A break below this area around 620 on the SPY would be more concerning. That sets you up to test the 50-day moving average at 612. But again, odds are like you're just going to bob in this range, okay? And inevitably break out to the upside. Perhaps once we get through some of the seasonal weakness that we tend to see in August and in some parts of September, some parts of October as well. Like the first half of October tends to be worse than the second half, but the second half of October through November and December tend to historically be pretty strong periods for markets. Santa Claus rally, people are spending money, things tend to be economically positive towards the end of the year. And generally people tend to have good expectations for the next year. Like the last time that I can recall, people were like bearish at the end of a year was 2022, right? To some degree, 2023. Like at the end of 2022, people were like, oh crap, 2023 is when the recession is going to hit, right? And people were not as excited at the end of 2022 for 2023. Same's kind of true for 2023. People were like, oh crap, well, maybe we could get a recession in 2024. But it was really pronounced in 2022 heading into 2023. I think there's a lot of reasons to be bullish and a lot of reasons to be optimistic for 2026. Like if we don't go into a recession this year, it's not going to magically happen next year, in my view. We don't just find ourselves in a recession. Like it takes a shock event. It takes something dramatic happening. The tariffs on China could have been that event, but business is getting back to business as usual. I'm not noticing any change of consumer activity or investing activity from businesses. In fact, I'm seeing more investing from businesses, and that fuels growth. So let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. Tesla stock specifically is kind of in this weird triangle pattern. Again, just to begin with, like, let's clean this up a little bit. It's pretty, clear to see. You're kind of in this triangle pattern. You're hugging the uptrending line on the downside here. On the low side, you bounced off the 100-day moving average. You want to see the stock go back to that 320, 325 area, break above your 50-day and your 200-day moving average. You break above that, you break above this, downtrending trend line here, which is going to act as some resistance. And if you break to the upside, then you could get a large break into the end of this year. If you break to the downside, well, that's not great. I personally think just Wall Street is, too negative overall on Tesla. Like there's there's not a lot we don't already know. Like, if you're bearish, you're bearish. Things are bad, right? They're not super great. It's not a big surprise. Now, option activity from hedge funds and institutions has actually been pretty positive recently. Not today. You have 25 different trades totaling $12.83 million with a positive order value of 47%. Volume and open interest are almost exactly at 50% on the call side and the put side. You do see today short sellers are covering about 467,000 shares on net, and short interest has fallen a lot from 86 million shares or so being sold short in early June to 70 million. They've covered like 16 million shares in the last, month or two. Okay. So from a positioning perspective, they've actually got quite a bit more bullish on Tesla. And retail, it's the opposite. Retail has gotten more bearish on Tesla, which is fascinating. So let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.